I had openings for tomorrow.
Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the scheduled meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designated time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, and we are using electronic and amplifying recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record. And we request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly to the microphone. The recording device will be still utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison.
Present.
Ms. Grace. Mr. Mignon.
Here.
Mrs. Stubbs.
Please excuse.
Mrs. Winters. Here. Mrs. Prado. Here. Mr. Mercado.
Present.
Mr. Parliament.
Please excuse this evening.
Mr. Cardis.
Mr. Carson is also excused.
Mr. Lechner.
Here.
Chief Harkins.
Here.
Mr. Chadwell.
Here.
Thank you. Before we go to our public portion, a longtime employee of the township, who's a former deputy clerk, Ann Quintavale, had passed away. Ann worked for the township from November of 1996 to December of 2010. Was a wonderful employee that worked very closely with our former clerk, Mr. Josie. If you can please keep her family in your thoughts and prayers, I appreciate it. Public portion is for agenda items only. Anyone addressing council may speak one time. Once all those wishing to address council, they may speak once again. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes with a time limit of 15 minutes for the entire public portion. Just a reminder on our order of business for our council meetings. If you do have a question when you're addressing council, all questions go to the council president. We do have qualified individuals, professionals, and colleagues here that can answer those questions, but all questions go to the council president, and then I will forward them to the appropriate individual. Is there anyone like to speak on any agenda items? Mr. Sweet.
Evening, Council.
Good evening.
From Muriel. Ordinance 2105.
Sir, there will be a public hearing for that at the second reading.
Okay, so you can ask anything on that?
Well, there'll be a public hearing for that, but before we get to that, anyone else have any other questions on the public portion? Seeing none, I'll let you ask your question, then we'll close the public portion.
Okay, I do have two questions actually on another agenda item.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, first one is just clarification. I see what's different because you're adding e-liquids, cannabis, marijuana products, tobacco-like substance. Is this like where does this apply to? Like public buildings, outside, Gloucester Township, walking around?
Well, I think the genesis of this is that we talked about e-liquids, cannabis, and marijuana products. For instance, going into Veterans Park, this new law is passed, and chief, if you want to tag in, I don't want. Sure. I think as a township, we don't want someone smoking a joint in Veterans Park.
And we have this clean air program where the parks were smoke-free zones. The township buildings were smoke-free zones. With the passage of the recent marijuana make legalization, decriminalization of marijuana and cannabis. It was brought to my attention by the Attorney General's local office about local ordinances where I could enforce smoking cigarettes, but I couldn't enforce it for cannabis use in our parks. I consulted with Mr. Carlemere, the mayor, and at my suggestion, I asked this to be added because it would, we certainly, I don't think, want cannabis being smoked, and cigarettes can't be smoked. So the only areas where this is for our public parks, community park, all our recreation facilities, our public building and whatnot. So the state law is concerning public use out in the public. This is really just to attach to our smoking ordinance.
So does that mean people can smoke down in the park? Cannabis?
No, just the opposite. No, we're making it illegal. I had to add cannabis so that you could not do that in the park.
Okay, all right. So, thank you. And ordinance where we're appointing, is this on?
I can hear you.
Press.
The ordinance where we're appointing a new tax assessor,
Resolution.
a resolution.
Yes.
Does council know what his background is?
Yes.
Would they like to share it with us?
Yes. He is a certified tax assessor in the state of New Jersey. He has, what background? He's a certified tax.
Give us a second.
I finished.
I'm sorry.
Where did he come from?
He was in Gloucester County.
He's a certified tax assessor that has worked with realty groups, Gloucester County Office of Assessment. He has been working in the private sector in appraisal services.
Is he a real estate agent?
No,
Yeah, I think he is. I think he does have a real estate license.
he has a realty group, I see.
But I don't think he does real estate. His main thing is he does appraisals. He worked for Gloucester County. I think he's second line at Gloucester County. And they have a countywide assessment system over there. So he's more than qualified.
Oh, no, I was just wondering where he came from. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we'll close the public portion. Ordinance of first reading. There will be a public hearing at the second reading. Ordinance of the Township of Gloucester County of Kansas, State of New Jersey, adopting amendment number 4, amending ordinance 0-04-13, entitled the Blackwood West Redevelopment Plan in accordance with NJSA 48:A-1, EDSEC Local Redevelopment and Housing Law. This would permit is hereby amend the Blackwood Redevelopment Zone, Section 13, that tattoo body piercing is not to exceed 25% of the total first floor area or 2 stations, whichever is less, when combined with either retail sales and services or personal services. I entertain a motion
Second.
on the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Mignani?
Yes.
Mrs. Winter? Yes. Mrs. Estrada? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-21-05. This is the first reading. The hearing will be held at the second reading. It's an ordinance amending Chapter 70 of the Code Book of the Township of Gloucester entitled Smoking Regulations. This adds to the ordinance that other paraphernalia that can be used to consume tobacco, e-liquid, cannabis, marijuana products, or tobacco-like substance is not permitted, as the Chief has said, in our parks and our public places. Township vote. Entertain a motion
Second.
on the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Mr. Mignani?
Yes.
Mrs. Winter? Yes. Mrs. Estrada? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next, resolutions of consent agenda. Any council member would like to move any of these items, please speak up.
Mr. President, can we have Resolution 84 voted on separately, please?
Sure. Therefore, we'll make an amendment to have the consent agenda 81, resolutions 81 through 83. I entertain a motion to accept resolutions 81 to 83.
So moved.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Ms. Grace? Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Yes. Mrs. Estrada? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes.
Regular agenda, resolution 210384, resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, State of New Jersey, confirming the appointment of the Township Tax Assessor.
I entertain a motion.
So moved. Second?
On the question, roll call, please. Yes. And a second.
Mr. Hutchinson?
I have to abstain, and I think the reason why I'm abstaining, I have used this gentleman as an expert in several of my cases in the federal court system, and I don't think it would be appropriate for me to vote on.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson.
Ms. Grace? Yes. Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Estrada? Yes. Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next, we have GTE Gov access emails. Just a reminder, emails have to come in before the close of business, which is 5:45. This question is from Peter Highball, Morningstar Court, Sicklerville, New Jersey. Has payment been made to Gloucester Township for the sale to the Gloucester Township Housing Authority of land parcel 12301, lot 4? If not, when will this payment be made? Is there anything that is delaying the finalization of this sale? No, payment has not been made yet. Mr. Heinball, they're in the midst of a title search right now that's taking place. And when Mr. Carter comes back in 2 weeks, we'll have a better update for you, Mr. Heinball. Thank you. Now we'll open up the second public portion. Anyone wishing to speak on any item may choose to speak. It's limited to 30. Wait, another one? That came in after 7:45. Oh, there's another one? I'm sorry. Bear with me, folks. That came after 5:45. I'll reach out to Mr. Burns directly. Second public portion, we'll open up the second public portion. This is for any item that anyone would like to speak on. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. There's a 30-minute time. I ask that all speakers, please be cognizant of your time. There may be other people that would like to speak. Mr. Polidoro, I saw your hand up.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro from the Historic Village of Ariel.
Good evening, Ray.
Before I start my question and our statements, I also would like to share in thoughts and prayers to Assistant Clerk Ann's family, and as well as the Carlemere family, who's dealing with some medical issues right now. I know that's a tough thing to go through, so our thoughts and prayers are with the Carlemeres also.
Thank you, Ray.
Just a question, and I guess it's probably a good thing that Mr. Cardis isn't here, because I'd like to ask council what they believe the status of the newest budget is as far as you're concerned, and what conversations, if any, have gone on about it, and what it looks like from your point of view as to whether we're going to see a tax increase or we're going to see a zero, or what it looks like for this year to the best of council's knowledge.
To the best of my knowledge is that, of course, we try to have our taxes stabilized and try to minimize the impact to our residents. I spoke to Mr. Cardis and asked for a time frame of when the budget will be submitted to council, and most likely that will take place at the first meeting that we have in April. So April 5th, April 13th, I believe. So the first regular meeting, April 13th.
Okay.
There are some things that we're looking to materialize. Mr. Heimel asked a question about the housing authority. There's some things that we'd like to include in that budget, but that has not been finalized.
Okay. Secondly, and I was trying to recall, since the since the state went to change the product of the school elections and school budgets and what have you, when a school budget is permitted from both the Black Horse Pike, where Gloucester Township is concerned, but more so the Gloucester Township school budget, does that still come before council to be voted on?
No.
Okay. You'll collect the taxes for them, but there's no approval needed.
That's correct.
Okay. Because it seems that we've got an additional $1 million from the state. And with that being, as you as always indicated, a great portion of our property tax. Now, if the school is going to be receiving a portion of that, was it $1.2 million between the two school districts? Wondering if the school district will have you collect less from us because they've got more from the state. And you know, maybe not carry a surplus, but maybe pass the savings along if they're able to do so with the additional state aid. But if you're not voting on it, it will be subjected to the school board, how they submit it for you to collect. Is that correct?
That's correct. In fact, at the March 22nd meeting, the school board will present their budget for the upcoming year.
Excellent. Thank you for that as well. I just have a question because I'm not.
Local, I mean, the local school.
No, I got you. I'm trying to understand the grant from the GIF fund for the police accreditation services. Is the GIF is a fund for an insurance purpose, correct?
Yeah, and that acronym, you know, Mr. Carson has talked about the GIF. Chief, you want to jump in?
So we are moving to the process of accreditation of the police department to the New Jersey State Police Chiefs Association. Our GIF that we're a part of offers a percentage, I believe it's 25% of the cost that they will grant us in a grant. In order for me to continue with the approval process of this, I need this resolution to be approved to present to them. And that is going to be part of my, well, it was part of my budget presentation, my request to Mr. Cardis and the mayor. So in order to keep our timeline going, I requested that resolution go through so we could check that box. So and the accreditation process includes best practices of the police department. It'll be full policy review. We'll be redoing our policies to ensure that we're doing all the best practices. We'll be audited and whatnot.
Is this something that we've done before?
Never.
Okay. And again, it was just difficult to understand, thinking of what the purpose of that is and what type of grant would come out of that and for what purpose.
And I can explain more if you'd like, Ray.
I'm very
It's a
content
good
with that.
process. It'll put us in a good position. We have very good policies, but this will make sure that we're not missing anything. And if we get the approved, it will result in a reduction in our liability costs through the GIF of approximately $8,000 to $10,000 a year, which will be projected. So it'll end up paying for itself within 4 years, and we'll be better off for it.
Thank you. And my last comment, speaking to the chief, is our hats off to the Gloucester Township Police Department and all of our fire apparatus that responded to the Howard Johnson's fire, kept things in order, kept traffic moving, and protected a lot of people that day. As always, we're thankful to all of them. Thank you and have a good night.
I agree. Thank you, Ray. Is there anyone else? Mr. Krug?
Good evening, Council. Paul Krug, Blackwood Estates.
Good evening.
Sympathies to the assistant clerk's family, and I hope for a speedy recovery with Township Attorney's family. I'm going to ask you to recall our discussion from the last council meeting on February 22nd. During that meeting, I presented the New Jersey State submitted financial numbers on Gloucester Township's municipal property tax levy over a 20-year period, from 1998 to 2018. Those numbers showed a 350% increase in taxes levied against Gloucester Township citizens over the 2-decade period, beating two comparable townships, Washington Township by about 135% and Cherry Hill by 90%. I wanted to address the validity of the numbers, as Councilman Hutchison suggested that numbers can tell any story. There's no attempt to narrate a story through these numbers. You received the unaltered numbers from the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. Please verify those numbers for yourselves. Although popular tact in politics, my profession utilizes data to improve efficiency and effectiveness, which is the only intent of delivering the numbers to each of you. In response to the numbers, or empirical evidence, I was dismayed to hear circumstantial evidence, or hearsay, presented in response. Councilman Hutchison began the deflection by citing growth as the main cause for a 350% increase in taxes levied. There was no categorization of the growth or an attempt to parameterize it. I'm sure he wasn't referring to the growth of downtown Blackwood over that period, which the township has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on an unexecuted redevelopment effort that is 17 years old, leaving downtown Blackwood looking much the same as decades past. Was he speaking about the population growth? I certainly hope not, as census data shows 2000's population of Gloucester Township listed as 64,350, while 2010 shows 64,634, a minute increase of 284 citizens. The 2019 estimate, because 2020 has been pushed back due to COVID, suggests that we may have lost up to 730 residents, listing 63,903 as the GT population. Certainly, this cannot account for the 350% increase in municipal taxes levied against the citizens of Gloucester Township. And since no parameters were set surrounding the statement, it's impossible to judge authenticity. Yet, several of you were happy to jump on the bandwagon, seeing a way out of the tougher conversation. Miss Grace took us back to 1987, over a decade before the data set was in question. For what reason? I have no idea. We learned that Ms. Strato has family in Washington Township and used to work in Cherry Hill. While a nice conversation starter, I'm left perplexed as to how it strengthens an argument for growth in Gloucester Township. Bottom line is this: the numbers don't lie. The administration and the Council of Gloucester Township are directly responsible for a 350% increase in municipal taxes levied against the citizens. You can try to twist, contort, and deflect all you like, but the previous statement remains true. Now, the question is, will you assume responsibility and change the trend, or will you continue to conform? I ask that question of Ms. Winter, if you'll allow it, President Mercado.
Mrs. Winter, you have a response to that, or you need some time for that?
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm conforming to anything. I feel like I'm moving along with the township as it does change. Maybe growth isn't the word, but change is the word. You know, I don't feel that I'm conforming to anything.
Mr. President, can I weigh in on this?
Absolutely, Mr. Hutchinson.
So Paul, you can take my words and you can think about them for 2 weeks. You can write up a beautiful speech. You're a gifted orator, okay? But I'm going to ask you, have you looked deeper into those numbers? Or have you just grabbed 3 numbers and that's what you want to make an argument on that? Because I can bring up a couple things.
Well, I'll start with, in the past 2 weeks, I have not heard from a council member with regard to data sets, variables, so forth. And I've been talking about this now going on 3 months. So yes, I have been doing the research. I have been looking at the numbers and doing the analysis.
Where are the numbers?
And I have not heard from this council in the least, except during these meetings where we try to postpone what I'm saying. And it's difficult for me to articulate it. That's why I have to take the time, because I'm only given 5 minutes typically. and it's hard to carry the conversation over 2-week increments.
So Paul, you have just gross numbers, and you compared gross numbers. Have you drilled down on those numbers to determine where the increases in our budgets are?
So number one, I have taken council feedback. Cherry Hill was not a comparable of mine. It was suggested by Councilwoman Stubbs, so I brought that into the information I provided.
So my question
The
is,
growth I looked at, as you spoke to, in generalized terms, which is circumstantial and hearsay, I went and looked at the census data to look at the population.
Paul,
I did not receive from you
Paul, I'm asking-
any data set whatsoever that supported the argument of growth. And yet,
Paul, where
you
in the-
spent most of the last meeting discussing that.
Paul, where in those numbers is the growth coming from? Come on, I mean, you know it. You can say it. You know in those numbers where the growth is coming from. Why don't you say it?
What do I have to say? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're
You've
getting
given
at.
us gross numbers there, and you looked at budgets, okay? Where is our exponential growth? What part of our budget?
Well, there's a number of different areas,
Well,
certainly.
give them to me. You
Certainly.
know where they are, so where
But-
are they?
Well, what I'll say is,
You're
I
right.
supported the citizens budget, which delivered you significant cost savings last year when you passed a 9.75% increase on the citizens during a pandemic.
Oh, you're dancing.
I'm
You're
not dancing.
dancing, you're not, you know where the answer is, and you won't go there.
Say it. Okay, go ahead. What's the answer?
Okay, you looked at the budgets, okay? Where are the major increases in our expenditures?
Across
From
the board.
98 till now.
Across
Where's
the board. It
where's
has to be
biggest-
across the board. It's a
Well, where's the
350%
biggest
increase.
Where's the biggest increase? Okay, hold on. Then you know what? Your number's gonna tell you whatever they wanna tell you. But if you wanna have a
You
conversation.
go to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, they're gonna tell you the same thing. Because that's all I did was deliver them to you, Dan.
Okay, cool.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Mr. Krug, your time's up. Miss, you had your hand up there? Yes.
Hello, Elizabeth Dugan, Blenheim. Hi. I have a question. My first question is about the response from the township to public inquiries. I've read in some places on social media where there are people who have tried to contact, for example, the construction department, and they've been trying for weeks and weeks, phone calls, emails. So I believe that we've been doing this no public coming into the building thing for about 10 months now. And I'm wondering if there was some sort of training or some sort of discussion of what priorities were, because I know, for many people, it's a different atmosphere working in the office with the public coming, excuse me, the public coming in your face versus working, isolated, and maybe the priorities aren't straight. I don't know. What do you think?
You're correct that the building has been closed since March around this time of last year. There are drop boxes that's available in front here. I understand that there have been some folks that have had issues in getting a hold of some of the offices and getting return phone calls back. They have reached out to some of my colleagues here. Mr. Strato's worked on some things, and I have worked on some things. If those issues, if you know of any of those issues, if you could bring them to our attention, or send me an email, or leave it with the clerk, that those individuals that are having an issue with it, please let us know. But I will make the administration and mayor's office aware of that. I do not have a timeline of when this building will be open. Mr. Carson, our business administrator, is not here tonight. And he works closely with the mayor and could get that timeline. But I can't provide that to you at this time.
Right, okay. I think it's mostly construction from what I've heard.
Okay.
Because, after COVID happened, people were stuck at home. They were doing more construction. So I don't know if there was staffing or some sort of procedure set up to handle the increased demand. Another question I saw on the bill list, which was very hard to find, by the way. On the bill list, there was a set of manual checks for over $10 million, and it appears that most of these manual checks were to the Camden County Treasurer, is that correct?
Well, if there are manual checks that are made to the Camden County Treasurer, that would be for taxes. But I don't have the bill list in front of me, I'm sorry.
Right, okay. So it seems that 10 million is kind of, looking at different months and considering the size of the municipality, do you think 10 million in manual checks is kind of high? It kind of scares me that they're manual checks.
Well, the municipality collects taxes for all the taxing entities. So the 2 school districts, the fire district, and us, and they send a check over to the county.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering why they're manual and not like, I guess, a computer check that, it just seems like it would be a different procedure and subject to some sort
I
of
can
issue.
check with the business administrator, Ms. Dugan, and get back to you.
And final thing is, I started looking at the budget from 2020, the capital portion, and it looks like there was a little bit of a reduction in 2020 because I saw it was passed somewhere in May 2020, so that was post-COVID. And I'm assuming that the budget's going to come up again in probably a couple months from now, or it might start to be introduced before that. Is there any plans to reduce the capital budget because to try and alleviate the taxes to us, the taxpayer?
The municipal or the capital budget, there's 2 budgets.
Capital budget.
The capital budget is used for, well, that was, in comparison to previous years, last year's budget was rather bare bones, the capital budget.
Yes, I saw that.
That capital budget is used for street improvements, sidewalk improvements, improvements to park. There could be expenses for equipment for various departments. The police department, there's normally an allocation of purchase of 10 new vehicles each year. That was not included in that budget last year, that capital budget. So each year, individuals, streets are viewed by our engineer, Mr. Chadwell, and his firm, and they're prioritized for what improvements need to be made to those particular streets. That's what our capital budget, a lion's share of it goes towards.
Okay, so do you anticipate that in 2021 that we're going to be making a lot of those repairs and purchases of equipment? And also I see that a good portion of it is from debt, probably by anticipation notes, if I had to guess. So is there any plan to like maybe seek out grants? Are you constantly seeking out grants so that you don't have to get the anticipation notes, which would be eventually paid back with taxpayers?
There are grants that we receive through the infrastructure grants that when we do improvements to our sewer, there's transportation grants that are through the Department of Transportation. I don't know what that capital budget is going to look like. That's something that the business administrator and the mayor's office will bring to council during a workshop, and we'll have a discussion about it. But I would imagine there are things that our residents would like or wish for in certain parts of our township. So, but no, that has not been developed yet, the capital budget. So I can't give you a preview on it.
Right, and I'm assuming that there's a budget committee of some sort?
There is a budget, there could be a budget subcommittee, and that's at the discretion of myself as president of council.
Okay, and does that happen every year or no?
No, it doesn't happen every year. There's some years when there's a zero budget, a 0% increase, and we could take a look and look at ways to possibly reduce it, but it wouldn't be substantial, some of those reductions. So last year there was a subcommittee that was formed, and that was chaired, that met on 2 occasions. But when the budget's released, I'll make that determination if we have a subcommittee comprised of council members.
Talking about the capital budget subcommittee.
There's 2.
I thought that's where you're going. Capital
Just
budget.
in general, I guess if there's 2 different budgets considered separately, then yes, I guess it means both. Okay. All right, thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Anyone else would like to speak? Mr. Sweet?
Evening, council, again. Sam Street from Ariel.
Good evening.
Couple quick questions. The capital budget, will that be introduced before the actual municipal budget?
It's normally afterwards.
Because if we're borrowing money, then that would go to debt service. So wouldn't we want to be able to calculate what our future debt service would be on this budget?
We have historically always had the capital budget after our budget.
No, the capital budget is sometimes before. So this time it's not going to be,
I have not received any information on the capital budget for this year.
but will it be before or after the municipal budget, or you don't know?
At this time, I have not even had a discussion with Mr. Cars regarding the capital budget. We talked about the municipal budget, the
Okay,
introduction of that.
can you have a discussion with Mr. Cardis on the capital budget as to when that's being introduced?
I will,
Thank you. And let me know.
yes.
With regards to the legalization of marijuana, has council or the chief, I guess, talked about what, like a plan of, are there going to be dispensaries in Gloucester Township? Because I know at one point, a couple years ago, Township had taken $50,000 from, as deposits. They returned them, but they took $50,000 deposits from various business entities that wanted to open up dispensaries. Has there been any discussion of that going forward?
Not as a body here. Chief, have you been brought in any discussions?
We had some conversations with the mayor, Mr. Lechner's been involved. We were getting, Mr. Carlemere is getting legal advice for us as how to proceed with potential zoning, right, Ken? I mean, if there's potential zoning changes. It was suddenly dropped on us. I believe we have 180 days and don't hold me to it because Mr. Carlemere was briefing us on a conference call that we had. And so it is in the works. I'm certainly not aware of what the outcome of that will be. And from the police department perspective, I just go along with whatever the laws that this body passes and whatnot. So we'll adapt as needed.
Are there any discussions from this body on what laws may be, like whether they'll be driving under the influence, anything like that?
So
Before you answer, no, we have not had any discussions. That would happen at a we didn't have a workshop, we didn't have any agenda items. We canceled the workshop, but no, as a body, we have not had that discussion.
Is that something that's on the horizon to have a discussion of?
I'm sure that's something that we can speak with the chief. I would like the chief's input on certain things, as far as notification of parents, and that's another, I keep seeing things of what police departments can and cannot do.
That's correct.
That concern me, as a parent and as a resident, but I think that may be a longer discussion. The chief?
And there's certain things that this body will not have any control of, as far as how I've analyzed it. I'm in regular consultation. I've been on regular calls with the Attorney General's office. I spoke with our county prosecutor because there's certain things that law enforcement has been restricted in doing that officers could be charged with a third-degree crime with. So the officers have to be very careful. It's changed a lot of how we're operating. I mean, I have my personal opinion of some of the issues involved with the notification of juveniles that have cannabis or marijuana. But if you read the law, you'll see that presently, on a first warning, an officer is not allowed to tell a parent. We are working with Assemblywoman Mascara's office. I've given her recommendations. We're working from different legislative fronts. My understanding, I was advised today, there's been some amendments introduced that will hopefully get some changes made to fix some of the issues that the New Jersey State Police Chiefs Association has with these laws. So we're still adapting to it. We've given immediate guidance to our officers to comply with the law, but it is a very different working environment. We're still trying to work through it. But I want to make clear there are certain things that this body will not have control over. You still cannot drive intoxicated. That's still a violation of law. That really hasn't changed that. Other drugs are still illegal. I'll be very clear. Right now, there are no dispensaries, so there is no legal marijuana out there. Anybody that's obtained it as of right now has obtained it illegally. Once dispensaries are open, a legal process, there's a whole, there's a packaging, but all of those have not been, there's going to be a regulatory commission that's appointed by the legislator and the governor, which will come up with the hows of those things are happening. So I hope that I could go on, but that's a short. I would encourage you to read the law. It's pretty clear what we can and can't do as law enforcement, and we're trying to adapt to it as best as we can.
Yes, Sam, I think we're preempted. I really don't think we can legislate as a body. I mean, what we did this evening is probably the extent to what we can do. We can't differentiate it from other types of smoking. As I see it, we have to lump it in with smoking. If you can't smoke on a park, you can't smoke anything on a park. You know? And I think we're safe there, but if we try to legislate anything else, you're asking for lawsuits.
But what about potential dispensaries? I know at one point, like
I
I said.
I can tell you how I feel about it. I have 4 children. This is the worst law I could possibly imagine. I mean, I understand medical reasons. I really do. I spent today with my father-in-law at the hospital. He's got back problems. But casual recreational use, no. I'm against it. Although I do respect the rule of law, and if the rule of law is that I can't do anything to prohibit it from coming in, I'm certainly not going to have taxpayers fund lawsuits that we know we're going to lose. You follow me? That would be insane. But I am absolutely against recreational use.
Mr. President, if I just to clarify, it is explicitly written in the law that local municipal bodies will not be able to supersede the state law. Mr. Hutchinson was correct as far as the smoking ordinance. We just were adding where you can't smoke. There is still a public. It's not real clear as to whether you can just smoke in public even when you obtain it, or whether you just do it in your home. There's clarifications on it, but this body was making very clear at my recommendation, which I appreciate, that make it clear that as it stood right now, I could stop someone from smoking a cigarette, but as per the Attorney General, it is not clear the way our ordinance is written as of tonight that I could stop someone from smoking a marijuana cigarette. So I thought that was absurd, and at the recommendation, you're going to see most towns throughout the area, as we became aware of this, we got briefed of this loophole for, so to speak, to recommend to their governing boards to amend their smoking ordinance and make it clear. But zoning and things like that, just like we regulate other things, that will be, that's not in my purview. But enforcement of the law, the towns cannot make an ordinance that'll supersede the state law.
If I may ask, I know how Councilman Hutchinson feels about dispensaries. How's the rest of council feel about it? Or is that like a question for a workshop, or is that like, just wondering? I'm concerned, obviously as a parent and, a citizen.
When dispensaries came about and there was individuals or companies that were interested in doing this, and they put a deposit down, as you well know. I've never done a drug in my life, and I consider marijuana a drug. Other people have different views on it. My own personal opinion is with this law and notification, parent, it bothers me a bit, but dispensaries. But then you also see that you may have municipalities that do have dispensaries that will bring in additional tax revenue. If our township doesn't do it, let's say we decide we don't want any of this in our township, you have Winslow, you got Deptford, people are running to Runnymede, Washington Township, where they say, hey, we'll gladly take the tax revenue that's coming in. So this is a longer discussion. We all have different opinions, and rather than going by opinions, I guess we have to go for fact and what's best for our residents.
Mr. President, I'll just add, this is just my personal opinion. I think it would be premature for you to comment until that regulatory body is set up, until the regulations. This is just the body of the law, and there needs a lot. The regulations, I think it wouldn't be prudent to make a decision until they give you further regulations as to
I would add that, we're looking at the zoning ordinance right now to see, what zones we possibly have. There's several different categories. There's dispensary, there's cultivation, there's manufacturing. So there's several different categories. So eventually, if you do have an ordinance, it's going to be before you, so it may be premature before you actually see the ordinance.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And then one last,
Your time's up, and so is our public portion.
actually, my time is still on.
You've been over 5 minutes, Mr. Sweet.
You guys were talking, taking my time.
You asked a question that also there will be a public hearing, and you're fully
I
aware of it.
understand that,
And you
but
know
you
that-
still took my
And
time.
Sam, but you know,
If I could ask my last point.
Sam, the public portion is closed. Thank you very much. Polling directors?
Mr. Wagner,
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Steve Harkins,
The only thing I would add is that, as Mr. Mercado, President Mercado had mentioned, we are approaching, we have marked as March 13th is the 1-year mark from when the shutdown occurred and for the COVID pandemic hitting us and us taking these drastic actions. So everybody just to reflect on all those that have been lost and where we're at and the great progress that we're making. And I will also say, as a director, as a member of this township that I serve, that I believe that the joint teamwork that was unprecedented between the executive staff, all of you, the police, the emergency services, public works to keep things going. We rewrote book that we never thought we were going to ever have to deal with situations. And I think it's a proud moment for Gloucester Township as to the way that we've reacted and what we're doing to this point for our community. Our community has been super supportive, and it makes me reflect on it. And I think it's a good time for everyone to reflect on it and how grateful I am to have served with everybody through this and how we continue to we still have ways to go. We're not done. We're making very good progress. I can tell you that because my direct contacts with the vaccination site, that is a top-notch run. Camden County College is a top-notch run site, and they are, as the supplies of the vaccines are coming in, they're doing a great job in getting shots into the arms of those that need it. And we are looking to make sure we have a meeting this week, the mayor, I do with Debbie Carr of our senior services to ensure that we're getting our seniors access to the computer, make sure they get registered to get them processed and we don't leave anybody. So it's a proud moment for us. I think for all of us, it's been quite a year, but I think we're all stronger together because of it. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Chief, and thank you for your leadership. Appreciate it.
Delco,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Hutchinson.
First, I'd like to give my condolences to the Valley family and to let everybody know, keep the Harlemiers in your prayers. We're dealing with a lot of grief right now. Ms. Dugan, it was nice to see you this evening. You brought up a very interesting question about capital budgets. A few years ago, Glenn Bianchini was our council president, and I asked the same questions you asked tonight, and we got into it. And he said, Dan, if we don't have a capital budget, then we're just going to kick the can. The stuff has to get done. And he brought me down to Sherbrooke, Timberbirch.
Timberberg.
Okay. And he showed me a wall that was collapsing. And he said, if we don't take care of this, we're going to spend 10 times the amount that it would cost now later on. So just as you have a house and you have deferred maintenance, you can't do something, you can't fix it. I know I do in my house. I say, we'll take care of the door next year. We'll take care of that next year. We have to take care of things in town. We have to fix the roads. You know, during campaign season, I knock on doors and I hear people say, come in my backyard. Let me show you what you guys are not doing. And I think that we all have heard that gentleman come up here and say that. So this is a huge town. It's 24 square miles, I believe. there's a lot of roads. There's a lot of projects that need to be done. And I used to drive around with Dave Brown, and we would look at all the roads in the town. And he said, Dan, my road has this surface. Why can't I have my road like that? The other roads. It just costs a lot of money. Well, we're going to go back and forth every single meeting. You and I are going to go at it. I'm telling you, we're going to go at it every meeting. You're not going to convince me, and I'm not going to convince you. But don't misunderstand the fact that I don't want to increase the taxes. I don't want to. But you know something? You know where those tax increases have come from. There's no hiding it. You look at the budget, you know where 25% of the budget is. I wonder if it was 25% of the budget back in 1998.
Please, I've been asking for it.
Paul, we have a public works department that it's trying to do a good job, okay? We have a police department. They do a fantastic job. We have trash disposal costs that are through the moon. We've got insurance costs that are very expensive. It's expensive in this town. Our capital budget last year was small, okay? If you were to look at the increase 10 years from now, based upon last year's capital budget, you're going to say, Dan, your capital budget has gone through the roof, 500%. Wouldn't you agree that that would be the case? So if the township in 1998 arbitrarily held down the policing costs of this town, and council wouldn't budge on it, and we were understaffed in our police department, does that justify keeping the police department at that level? The answer is no, it doesn't. So you're going to have increases. You can look at some fire districts in this town. Look at Ariel. Their budget is almost non-existent. You look at Choose. They got a huge budget. Why? Why is it that way, Paul?
I think that's a question.
Does it have anything to do with the fact that if there's a fire in this town, Choose has an engine out almost immediately? I pay that fire tax. And I'm happy to pay that fire tax. Because if my house catches fire, I know that they're going to have an engine right in front of my house in no time at all. Kevin Donahue does an amazing job. Okay? We don't waste money in this town, Paul. We're not wasting money. Point to me. Tell me where we waste the money.
Can we not engage in the back and forth? Mr. Hutchinson, please continue.
I'm just frustrated. You know, Paul, you come up here every single time and you're throwing numbers at us, but you never tell me where I'm wasting money.
We submitted the citizens budget last year.
But you didn't tell me where I was wasting money on my budget.
Mr. Cruz
Thank you very much.
and Mr. Hutchinson, this is Mr. Hutchinson's time.
Sorry about that.
Please try not to engage with public, Mr. Hutchinson. Thank you.
Just want to thank everyone for coming out. Just continue to stay healthy.
Chief, extremely well said. Thank you. I concur. Everyone be safe going home. Have a great week. Thank you.
Mrs. Winter?
I want to thank the chief for your comments. It's true, teamwork, is where things happen. I just want to remind everyone, like the chief said, we're a year into this. We're not over it. It's not gone. Please be smart. Please don't take risks and protect yourself and your family. We need to go forward and we do not need to go backwards. So please be careful and keep yourself safe.
Mrs. Freda?
Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Mercado?
There are times we have members of the public that they ask a question, they try to catch a council member off guard and I guess try to create a sound bite. And one of the things that I think that I appreciate about the people that serve up here, they have all been intimately involved with our township. Whether it's in a little league organization for many years, whether it's a community and trying to rebuild her community, whether it's bringing a signature event to our township, the American Cancer Society event that went on for 10 years in our township, or being part of her PTO in Glendora, or Mr. Hutchinson, whether he's coaching baseball or football, or Ms. Winters involved through hockey and then raising money for research, cancer research through hockey. They're in your communities, intimately involved. They listen to people in the community. They hear what people need, what resources and services that are needed. I used to sit prior to, so I've been here for a while, and I can tell you when Chief Smith would sit in that room during budget time and talk about how our community was the same size of Perth Amboy up in Union County, or Middlesex County, and that Perth Amboy had X amount of police officers, and was a smaller geographical section of New Jersey, and was imploring we needed more police officers. Our crime rate is not going to be where it's at, will remain the same if we don't get more police officers. Chief Smith never got more police officers. He got cars, he got equipment, but he didn't get more police officers. When our current mayor came in, one of his focus was we have to keep our township clean and we have to keep it safe. And if you take a look, I don't fudge the numbers, no one fudges the numbers, the mayor doesn't fudge the numbers, but if you take a look at our crime statistics, they decline. And they have declined dramatically. And that's because of the resources that we've committed to our police department. You look at our township and the resources we provide through public works. That's the amount of resources we've committed to public works. So when you ask these questions, I know Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Krug go back and forth, where's the budget, what's happening? These are where your dollars are going towards. And then we can talk about recreation, and we all know about the recreational activities that we have in our township. But again, the individuals that are here are intimately involved in our community, actively involved. And they just didn't quit being part of those organizations when they became a council member. And just because they're getting paid $8,000, they don't do certain things. No, they're actively involved in their community, listening to their community, and they're a part of their community. Ms. Quintavalli would usually sit in when Mr. Josie was not here, and Ms. Quintavalli will lean over to me and say, tell him to wrap up the portions. So, Ray, you have to blame her because she didn't like working our council meetings. They were long council meetings. And she would say, lean over and say, tell him to speed it up. But she was quite the character, very hard worker. Anytime I asked her for anything, she always helped the members of council, and she'll be sorely missed. I know Nancy worked with her very closely over the years and learned much from her. So, again, please keep the Quintavalli family in your prayers. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye.